This is Gemara in Succah Daf Lamed Gimel of the learning for this month. The month of Elul has been generously sponsored by a close friend of Adaf, his mother, Esther Rezel Bas, Reb Meir, whose yahrzeit is tomorrow on Beis Elul. The learning of the entire Chabura should be a tremendous chos ili nishmasa, that she should go higher and higher in her place in Gan Eden, as well as this past Shabbos, it was the grandson's Yisrael Lester's bar mitzvah. The learning of the Chabura should hopefully have been a tremendous chos for him, for his grandmother. Of course, for Esther Rezel Bas, Reb Meir. Of course, we can't forget all our we can't forget all our Chaylim, Emmanuel and Vega, Emmanuel Vega, Chaim and Sasham, Zim Reitz, Harbas, Kinandel, the Basim, Chaim, Sayyid, Mental, the Shalom, Mazam, Shav, Shilchan, Shum, Medidin, Chaim, Chaim, the Brachas, the Musa, Adinena, Vishem, the Sigma, Vega, Nicholas, and the Lord, God, Shem, the Tolzim, Esther, Besoy Shar, Chayli Yisrael, we pick it up in the bottom of Lamed Beis and Mid Beis. We finished off a discussion about the Hadassim, what is called avos, what is called braided, and we concluded yesterday with the words at the bottom of Lamed Beis and Mid Beis, two different opinions. That either, as you see highlighted 6 lines down from the bottom of the Amid, either tlasa has to be 3 in braids, or afilu trei v'chad, which was the opinion of Rav Kahana, and we said that Rav Acha went to find such Hadassim to conform with the opinion of his Rebbe. You see in front of you, here is the opinion of Tlasa, and here's a beautiful rendition of Rav Kahana's opinion. Afilu trei v'chad, as you see 2, and 1 smaller leaf sticking out from the side, and that is the opinion of Rav Kahana. Once we have this open, we'll show the next Gemara that we're about to read. The Gemara says, that if all the leaves fall off, as we're about to see in a moment, the Gemara is going to be bothered. How potentially could that be kosher? Why is there not an issue that it's not obvious? Let's see that right now. Taner Rabbanan, 4 lines to the bottom. Nashu Roiv Olav. If the majority... 1 second. Apologies, we're having technical difficulties. Let's begin again. Taner Rabbanan. Nashu Roiv Olav. The majority of the leaves fell off. And it's only a minority of the leaves, says the Bryce are kosher. Ubilvad. It has to be the always the braided has to still be existent. Ask the Gemara the obvious question on Gufa Kasha. That's inherently contradictory. The majority falls off is kosher. That's allowed. Has to be braided. How could that be possible? Like we saw in the picture, that once half fall off, where's the obvious? Where's the braid? Amar Abaye Mishkach Hasla. Move over to today's daf. Lamed Gimel Lamed Aleph says Abaye Ba'asa Bit Raima. When you have the Mitzrayim Hadassim, that's when the border Hadassim, that's when it's potential to have a case where that even when the majority fall off, you'll still have it braided. Why? Says the Gemara, the Kaimi Shiva because border Hadassim have 7 leaves in one each branch, each cluster. So therefore, when the majority fall off, you're still going to be left with 3. There is still 3 left, and that's going to be the case with this brisa, that even when the majority fall off, you still have a kosher hadas. Amar Abaye explains to Abaye Shmamina, we've arrived from here. I asked Mitzraya kosher. We see that a border hadas must be kosher from what we just said. Lo Ishana. Ask Gemara Pshita, of course. Mal the Tema explains the Gemara. It's not called a hadas. It's called a border hadas. It's a different name. We would have thought it's kasher. It's not kosher. Kamash Malon. That even though it has a different name, it's still kosher. Ask the Gemara 1 second. The obvious question. Classic Gemara. Maybe it's true that if it's a border hadas, has a different name and it's not kosher. Explains the Gemara. 8 avos amarachmana mikol hamakayim. As long as it is an 8 avos, a braided hadas, that's going to be kosher. Taner Rabbanan concludes the Gemara. Yavshu reiv alav v'neshayru by shleish abad the all. And if all majority fall off, we have 3 left. Lachen that are moist. Kosher, it's going to be kosher. Excuse me, they don't fall off. If yavshu, if the majority dry out, but there are 3 left, that is kosher. Rav Chisda u'barosh kol echad ve'echad. It says Rav Chisda, it's not just any 3 that remain, it has to be 3 at the top. Here you see an absolutely beautiful picture of the Asa Mitzrayim. As you see, there's more than 3, there's 7 leaves. So even when the majority fall off, you're still going to be left with 3. As you see in this picture, that even though when 4 fall off, there still are 3 left over there. A beautiful picture of the avos of the Hadassah Mitzrayim. And here is the last Gemara that we just saw, that even though the majority, as you can see over here, is dry, but if at the top there's the nice moist ones, it's still going to be kosher. Over here you see that if in the middle it's not going to be. An issue is, as Rashi explains, it's an issue of hadar, that it's not beautiful when it is dried off. Says the Gemara, Nikdam Rosh, and actually we should just look at the picture once we have it open. Nikdam Rosh, as you see over here, the top leaves fell off. Says the Gemara, Tani, we learned in the Mishnah, Ula Barachina Nikdam Rosh, also tomorrow, kosher. If the top leaf fall off, but a tamar, a little date grew out of there, then it's going to be kosher. You can't really see that in the picture, but it's going to be kosher. Fundamental shayla. The top fell off on Erev Yantif, but also by Tamara be Yantif. And on Yantif it grew this Tamar, it grew this date. What's the status? Meaning, when Yantif began, was this a kosher hadas? No, because the top was missing. But then, on its Yantif on its own, the Tamar grew, and now it's kosher. What is the din? Mahu. Do we say a fundamental shayla, says the Gemara, do we say this dicha, that you push away mitzvahs, that since when Yantif began it was not kosher, therefore it's not kosher? Or do we say that no, practically right now this tamar grew up the top, and therefore it's enough to say it's kosher? It says the Gemara, fundamental shayla, is there dicha for mitzvahs? Do we say that once it's pushed away, it's pushed away? Explains the Gemara, let's bring you a raya. The Tanam we learned in the Mishnah. If you cover over the tamba carbon, then it becomes revealed. Potter milikasis milich sais. You do not have to recover it. Kisai ruach. Let's say wind blew dirt on top of the blood. Chayav lechasis. Then you have to recover it. V'amer Rabbi Bar Chanam Rabbi Yechon loishanu el shechazar v'niskale. That the wind covered over the blood. Of course, they didn't have kisei adam by a carbon by shchit. You have to cover over the blood with dirt. So loishanu el shechazar, you covered it v'niskale, and then it got revealed. Aval lechazar v'niskale. If it didn't get revealed afterwards, Potter milachasais, you do not have to recover it. A din about kisei adam. Va'avinam, we pondered and we've delved into this halacha. Ki chazar v'niskala may chayav l'chasis. When it gets opened up again, what's the reason you have to recover it? Hayel ve'etzchi etzchi. Why don't we say no? You lost the mitzvah. What's the mitzvah covering the dam? Once it was covered by the wind, that's it. It's finished. Yesh dicha yitzal mitzvahs. Once it's pushed away, it's pushed away. So what do we see from here? Papa, from this halacha explains Rav Papa. Zoysemeres we see ein dicha leitza mitzvahs. Says Rav Papa. You know, we see that there's no din of dicha. There's no din of pushing away a mitzvah, even though it was covered up. Even though there was no din of covering over the blood, when it subsequently comes uncovered, you recover it. So says the Gemara, we have a right to our din. There's no din of dicha. Same thing will be by us. That what's going to be the halacha if the tamar goes on the hadas? It's going to be kosher. It says the Gemara, the Rav Papa guva mi bayile. Rav Papa had this as a shayla. Mishab shita le din dichlei to mitzvahs. Do we answer that there's no din of dichoy? Loishna likula, loishna lechumra. That is what Rav Papa is asking. Do we say that whether it's a stringency or leniency, we say yesh dichoy, that ain't dichoy, we don't push it away? I don't know. Maybe that case of covering the dam is different. We weren't sure. Is it only a chumrah? In the case of kisei dam, we don't have to recover it. But to say a lekula, maybe not. In our case, to say that das is kosher when the tamari grew on itself, that's saying yesh ein dichoy yitzal mitzvah is lekula. Excuse me, yesh dichoy. Therefore, says the Gemara, teku. That was the question. We don't have an answer to that question. On that point, whether we say yesh dichoy, ein dichoy yitzal mitzvahs, says the Gemara, leba ketanoi. Let's say it is a machloikes tanoim. Over veluktem puzzle. If there were excessive berries on your hadas and you plucked them off, it's possible to Rav Eliezer. Then sadik v'chacham machshirim. So the Gemara now explains what is this machlekes regarding picking off the berries off of a das. There's too many berries on the das. It's possible. You pick them off. It's kosher. So Ruah, the kuli am, everyone agrees lulav ain't sarach eged. You don't have to bind the lulav together with other meaning. V'intim solemer sarach eged le'afinu lulav misukah. You do not learn out lulav from sukkah. Why not? The chsiv bod is a special halacha by sukkah tasel menasei. Only by sukkah is that halacha, but by other mitzvahs, there's no problem of tasel menasei. So when it comes to hadasim, even if originally it's possible, you bind it together, and subsequently it becomes kosher, it's not a problem of Tassim and Asi. The issue of Tassim and Asi would say, if when it was created, if it was bound together, it was possible, it's not going to be able to be kosher afterwards. Says the Gemara, that's not a problem, it's only a problem by Sukkah. So now the Gemara explains, what's this machlekes, my labav kamifti? Demand the apostle, according to the says the apostle, Savaram bin Yeshichle, it's a mitzvah. Why is the apostle? Because once the hadas had too many berries, Yeshichle, it's pushed away, there's nothing you could do. Why is it kosher? Because we never push it away. So you could save it afterwards. So suggest the Gemara, whether we say yesh dichoy, whether we say that once there's a moment of time that it's pushed away, it's forever pushed away, that should be a machlokes tanoim between Rav Elazar ben Tzadok and the Chachamim, as seen by the din of the berries on the hadas, if it was created, if you could subsequently machshir it. Answers the Gemara, of course, anytime we say Leima Kitanai, the Gemara is a question because we don't want to have Amarayim having the same machlekes as the previous Tanaim. Says the Gemara, Loi, the Kuli Amalei Amin Yesh Tichla, it's a mitzvah, everyone says we do not say Yesh Tichloi. What is the machlekes in this case of the hadas, the berries? That's the machlekes. Do we say lulav is like sukkah? We say lulav is just like sukkah, and therefore, just like by sukkah, there's an issue of tasla and also. So to by lulav, Teretz number 1. Similar answer. If you say the lulav has to be bound together, then the kuliyam everyone holds you learn a lulav from sukkah when it's possible. It's possible. That is the machlokes. Does the lulav need to be bound together? Meaning is an intrinsic and critical ingredient in the dalet meaning being all down together. Plug to Tani tonight's machlokes like we've seen previously. The Tani learned to the Raisa. Lulav. If your lulav is not bound together with other minim, is that kosher or not? Machlokes Tanakam and Rabbi Yehuda. My time with Rabbi Yehuda, what does Rabbi Yehuda say? It's kosher only if it's bound, if it's possible, if it's not bound. Yolav lekicha megudas ezoiv. By the bundling of the hyssop. Ksevach says be'asul lekachtu v'cham yemarishayin. Ksevach by gudas ezoiv lekachtu gudas ezoiv malalam like godav kan agudos. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. The din of binding together the aluminium is the ikuva. It's intrinsic and critical, to the mitzvah. For Rabbanan, leslu lekicha, they don't hold of such a drasha. So the Gemara concludes, Mantana Rabbanan, who's the following Tana? That says, Lula mitzvah doivim loyagda kosher. What does that sound like? Money. In Rabbi Yehuda, loyagda my kosher. This is a middle level. It has to bind, but if you don't bind, it's kosher. It's no one. If it's Rabbi Yehuda, my kosher. Rabbanan, my mitzvah, Kavid, what mitzvah are you doing? Answers, Bar Lolam Rabbanan mitzvah mishom, a different mitzvah, the mitzvah of binding, it can either be intrinsic and critical, or it's a new mitzvah of Zakili Manveu, to beautify the mitzvah by having it all bound together. This is a nice picture, something we've seen so many times, like Gudas Ezoiv all bound together. And that is the end of this Gemara. Let's just see the pictures of the next Gemara. As you can see over here, you see there are these berries growing on the hadas, but makam echad, or we're going to see if they're growing in shnayim or shleishim mekayim, then it's going to be kosher. Let's just see one more picture. And over here you see, if you have a nut of yeroikais, if you have the green berries, that's fine because it's the same min of the hadas. Whereas if you have the red berries, that's going to be a different shayla. And in the case where the lulav hadas and Aravas came untied on Yantif, like you see in the next picture, what are you going to do? Do you bind them together? How do you bind them together? Perhaps you make a bow. Perhaps you just loop it around. That's going to be Amud Beis. Let's get going on the bottom of Lamed Gimel Abed Aleph, 2 lines to the bottom. If there's more berries, it says the Gemara Amrav Chisda Davar Zer Rabbeinu Gadol Amru. Hashem should help him to saying such a crazy thing. When is it possible for all the berries are in one place? Kosher, it's not a problem. So to have excessive berries on your hadas is only an issue if they're all in one cluster, but if they're spread out, it's fine. Amr Le Rava asks Rava, we turn over to Lamed Gimel Beis. Says Rava, 1 second. How can you tell me 2-3 places kosher? No, it's a different issue. It's a menumar. It's a spot in a das. Possible. If there's more berries, it's possible. Only black berries are an issue. Is green ones, meaning dadasu kosher. So that was Rav Chisda's problem. Now why are you giving a blanket statement that any time there's lots of berries, it's an issue? It's only the black guys. Aduma is kishchura, red is like black. Dam Yom Rav Chanina, famous statement of Rav Chanina, Haidam, and you learn Tachas Nida, Shachar is Adam Huela Shakalaka. What is black? A fundamental shayla, what is the color of black? Says the Gemara, really, it's red. It just got stricken, it just turned black from whether it was oxidized, etc. That's the reason why the blackberries on the hadassim cause an issue. But we continue in the Mishnah 8 lines from the top, miyat and kosher. You plucked off those berries and you're fine. Says the Gemara, when did you pluck off the berries? Before you bound it together, pshita, of course, you plucked off the berries, you have a kosher hadas, then you bind it all together, of course it's kosher. Elo says the Gemara, after you bound it with the berries, then you plucked it off. Says the Gemara, 1 second. It was originally pushed away. It was puzzle. You bound it together while it was puzzle. Then you made a kosher. So we should bring a proof from here that when you push something away, it's not a problem. You can subsequently fix it afterwards. Answers the Gemara, no raya. Really, you fixed it after you bound it all together. What is the binding? Says the Gemara, this on Mandamra holds. It says Zmana, it's merely designating it for a mitzvah. It's not properly putting it together. Lav, klum, hu, which obviously does not fit with that which we said in Amud Aleph. That Zmana is a critical component to the mitzvah. Vein mimatin b'yantiv, we said it further in the Mishnah, you're not allowed to pluck off those berries on yantiv. Asks the Gemara, let's say you did. You weren't supposed to, but you went and you plucked the berries in yantiv. What's the halacha? Kosher. The ashcher emas. What happens if they turn colors? If you're going to tell me that it happened yesterday, then what's the halacha? That's a case where it's pushed away when yantiv began. Sounds like it's kosher. That it happened on Yantiv itself. Says Gemara, this is something that was kosher, then became basel. So prove at that point. So we should prove that point, that when you have something that's kosher, then becomes basel, it's going to be kosher. Answers Gemara, it was originally black. You're right, it's dicha meikara, but you can't prove that it's a case of nira v'nidcha chayze v'nira. In that case, you can't prove. Can only prove a partial part of what you were trying to prove. And that is the end of the Gemara. To see when Rashi over here, Rashi says when it became black. That's when it became an issue. That's the point that we're grappling with. At what point it became black was a moment in time it was kosher, apostle, etc. Taner Rabbanan, it says the Gemara, "In mimatin biyantiv mishum Elazar of Shimon Amru mimatin." Like we started off saying, are you allowed to decrease the berries and yantiv? Says the Tanakama. No. Says Elazar of Shimon. Yes. Ask the Gemara of Elazar of Shimon, how can you do that? You're fixing the entity. You're making it a kosher adas. Yantiv and yantiv, of course, tikkun man is also on yantiv. An interesting tarot. It says the Gemara, you know what the case is? You plucked the berries to eat them, and then Memela, it just happened to be. Now your hadas doesn't have berries on it, but that wasn't your intention. Says the Gemara, who does it sound like? It's reminiscent of our Gemara in Shabbos days. Rav Shimon, holds like his father, Rav Shimon. It's a darshin miskaven. It's true you fixed the hadas. What was your kavanah? Your kavanah wasn't to fix the hadas. Your kavanah was to eat the berries. And that's why he says the Gemara is going to be kosher. Going with the opinion of Rav Shimon, darshin miskaven is mutter. Ask the Gemara, that's beautiful to explain, that's what Rav Eliezer holds. But they both hold Mother of Shim Sikresha Yamas. It's if the Sikresha, if it's automatically going to happen, you cut off the chicken's head, it's going to die. Over here, you take off the berries, you're automatically fixing the entity. So that should be a problem. Answers the Gemara, that you have another Ashana. So at some level, it's like a real Davar Shein Miskavin, meaning there's nothing that you have zero Kavana. There's a difference between Sikresha when it's automatically going to happen and you're happy about it, or over here it's not even on your das, there's no sheikhs. You have your lulav esrog dasim all waiting, and you picking up the berries. So it's true you didn't even make a kosher hadas because you don't need a hadas at all. That's why it's mutter. Taner Rabbanan hotar agda biyantav agda kagudish al yarik. Let's say the bundle comes apart. What do you do on yantiv? Bundle like a vegetable, just wrap it around. V'amai asking Gemara, why do you have to do that? Why don't you make a bow on it? You're allowed to make a bow on Shabbos and yantiv. Answers the Gemara, Amani Rav Yehudi Damar, Aniva Kshira Mal Yasi. A bow is a real knot. The famous sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, we learned the Gemara in Shabbos, comes up over here, and that's why you can't make a bow on your hadas, on your bundle of lulav esrog, get lulav hadasim and arabis. Ask the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is also the same opinion that holds you have to have a real binding. Answers the Gemara, a very nice question, because it comes out, if it's Rabbi Yehuda, you have to have a real binding. A bow is not going to work, but a bow he holds is Ikshir B'alisa. Says the Gemara, like Rabbi Yisei B'chada, Poli B'chada, he only holds like Rabbi Yehuda in one part of his statement, he doesn't fully hold like Rabbi Yehuda. And that is going to be this middle level that he's going to hold it, you're going to wrap it around. You're not going to be allowed to make a bow because he holds it to real kshira. You don't have to do a proper aguda because he doesn't hold like Rabbi Yehuda on that point. Says the Mishnah will conclude Arava Gezula, stolen Aravais. We did Lulav Esrog in Adas and Arava, or Yevesha if it's dried, it's tussle. Shalasher Shilanidacha, if it's worshipped, the city has to be destroyed. Psula. Nikdam Raisha chopped off, never to Olav. It's Savsvo, see in the Gemara what Savsvo is. Psula, Kemusha. If it's wither, if it's shenashu mixas olavish al bal, sheiro, or part of the leaves came off, or if it's of a bal, as we'll see in the Gemara what that means, that it's going to be kosher. Mr. Shem will pick up from here tomorrow.